We have Val Venis on the line on the Skype, right, Goodwin? All right, bring him up. How are you?
I'm doing well, man. How are you doing?
Oh, yeah, we're smoking out Vapor Central. We're getting really high tonight, really good and medicated. How you been?
I've been doing good, man. I was up there on Friday, and sorry I missed you there. I was going to come in Sunday night, and we got side. Get down to Buffalo and fly back to Phoenix because that's my favorite place on the planet is Vapor Central.
Oh, that's
there, Matt?
Yeah, it's so good to hear that you love vapor. I mean, you've been around the block many times. Oh, geez, will you bring in Damien out? He was just going to sit here. Anyways, we brought our good buddy Damien in here from the Fucked Up.
I'm excited. Oh, man, that's awesome.
You're a fan, I know.
I'm a Mark. I'm a big fan, Val. Big fan. Good to see you.
Okay, so I guess
that.
the first sort of question I have is head injuries. Are they a good thing or a bad thing?
They're definitely a bad thing. The good thing is marijuana can help that.
Right. So sometimes you're not like a dick, and then like you got your bell rung, and then you become a nice guy. That doesn't happen.
No, not really. No, I mean, it's one of those things where obviously it's a physical sport. Sometimes it can happen, but most of the time it's physical. It's not ballet, that's for sure.
Well, that's what I mean. It's just like that's why I asked if when you get your bell rung, do you become like a nicer guy or something? So, but it's a good question as you brought up is marijuana, and your former employer has a pretty strict anti-drug policy. Do you think the use of marijuana might actually help wrestlers have a longer career?
Absolutely. I mean, it's one of those things where, I don't really put the blame on WWE. I put the blame on federal laws prohibiting marijuana use, and they're a corporation. They have to. I guess they're kind of forced into certain situations, and what's happening there now is it's a deadly game. It really is. I mean, we have a lot of wrestlers throughout history, especially the past decade, that have passed away from prescription pain pills, opiate-based pain pills.
And I think there's an unlargely amounted number of wrestlers have passed away to prescription painkillers, to be truthful. I think the number of wrestlers in your profession is quite high, and I think you seem quite concerned about it.
Oh, absolutely. It's the drug testing policy in WWE is they test for everything, including prescription drugs. Now, when they first brought in the drug testing policy, and this was shortly after Eddie Guerrero had passed away, they brought in the drug testing policy, and they were testing for everything, cocaine, heroin, Vicodins, all that hydrocodone, oxycodone, all that prescription pill stuff. And it was one of those things where they were not going to test for alcohol or marijuana, which was actually a good thing because the fact is, as long as you have a prescription for hydrocodone or oxycodone, you get a clean drug test. I mean, you test positive for it, the drug testing policy director will call you up. He'll ask you, do you have a valid prescription for this hydrocodone that we found in your system? You then fax them the valid prescription, which is easy to get, and you get a clean bill in your drug testing form that you would get in the mail. And that would normally happen 3, 4, sometimes 5 times a year. Now, when Linda McMahon decided she was going to run for a Senate seat in Connecticut, I guess they would consider this a public relations problem. So instead of no longer testing for marijuana, they decided they were going to start testing for marijuana. However, they weren't going to suspend you for testing positive for marijuana. They were going to fine you $1,000 every time you tested positive for marijuana. And that was to avoid the media, of course, trying to railroad Linda McMahon's campaign for a U.S. Senate seat, saying, oh, look what she does. She allows her talent to use marijuana. And so in WWE's defense, that would probably be bad publicity for the general population in America. However, the reality is marijuana, of course, you know this just as well as anybody else that knows anything, even the basics about marijuana, is no one's ever died from marijuana, ever. And it treats so many different problems and issues. And it's one of those things where we still can continue to wrestle, be on hydrocodone and oxycodones, and have a clean drug testing policy. But God forbid you roll up a marijuana cigarette, and now you're going to get fined $2,500 as opposed to the $1,000 that it was before. So it's one of those things that's kind of a headache. I think it would be a lot healthier if the talent were allowed to consume marijuana for general aches and pains and things like that, as opposed to popping pills all day long.
When you say general aches and pains, don't you mean like a lot of my understanding is you guys get some serious bumps and bruises, some broken bones, and that you're still required to perform? What's been your worst injury that you've been required to still get out there and perform?
It's actually, that's kind of a myth. WWE, when you get injured, WWE wants you to say something, and they will attend to that injury. They will pull you off the road if necessary. They do have an interest in keeping their talent healthy.
Okay.
It's a long-term interest in terms of putting time, money, and effort behind pushing a certain talent. You want to make sure that talent's going to be good for the long run when you're investing that kind of money into a talent. So it's kind of a myth that they force you to wrestle. They really don't. It's actually it's on the talent's side. There's a lot of talent up there that when they do get injured, they get afraid that they're going to lose their spot. And so when they get afraid that they're going to lose their spot, they end up not telling the office that they're injured, and they continue to work through the injury. And of course, that degrades their performance, and the office starts taking notice, not realizing they're injured, and one thing leads to another. And the next thing you know, a year or two later, they get on the chopping block because their performance just isn't up to par. And the whole reason is because they've been working injured the entire time because they were afraid to tell the office about their injury. But there are guys up there that as soon as they get injured, they tell the office to say, listen, this is what's happening. And they'll let them know whether they can or can't work through it. If they can't, the office will, get them fixed up as quickly as possible. And I mean, that's happened over and over again. John Cena ripped his chest muscle right clean off the bone. And, he gets healed up quickly. They give him the best medicine available. And it's actually the myth that the company doesn't care about the talent is kind of backwards. It's just a myth itself.
So I'm curious now. What you've been, your Captain Cannabis persona on Twitter I love the name, by the way.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
You're very adamant about this issue. How did you get involved in it?
For years I was very anti-marijuana. I was anti a lot of drugs, and it was I just didn't know anything about it really. I had my first drop of alcohol when I was 21, even though I could drink at 19. I just never did. And so I'd go out and every 3 or 4 months I'd go out with my friends and get smashed and, have a good time. The hangovers were, just terrible. I hated hangovers. I never really liked the taste of alcohol. And so by the time I hit about 26, 27, I was pretty much, done with alcohol. That was enough of that. And then when I was about 28, I got into ecstasy. And that was great. Every 3 or 4 months, I'd get together with my friends, go drop some ecstasy, roll our asses off all night, have my hands lit up like Christmas trees. And it was good times. But then, I did that about a dozen times, and it was one of those things the last couple of times I did it, I just didn't enjoy it anymore. I kind of grew out of it. And at that time, I had been wrestling since I was 18. And so it was starting to take its toll. I mean, I was wrestling full time since I was 18, in England, Mexico, Puerto Rico, Japan. And the rims in England and Mexico were bulletproof. So it really took a toll. By the time I hit, 28, 29, I started to feel the aches and pains a little bit. So I started taking pain pills, but I would take them once in a blue moon whenever I needed it. And the only reason I took those because it was legal. The doctor gave it to me. I didn't know anything about those either. I didn't know they were related to opium. I had no clue. It was one of those things where, hey, if the doctor gives it to you, it's got to be safe. And so
I've been there.
I would take a pain pill once in a while.
I've been there. You trust your doctor and what they prescribe to you, and you're just like, here's your prescription, and you you trust what they're doing, and so.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. But it was when I was about 30 years old, I tried marijuana for the first time, just out of curiosity. Still didn't know a whole lot about it, and I liked it. It was relaxing. It wasn't anything that I thought it would be. It was just more of a relaxation type of substance. And when I got about 34, 35, I tore every ligament out of my right shoulder, right clean off the bone. And so I needed total reconstructive shoulder surgery. And prior to that, of course, I was taking pain pills, like I said, just once in a blue moon whenever I got, a little injury here, a little injury there, and it worked. But after my shoulder surgery, I was taking them every day, 3 times a day for 3 months straight. I had 6 anchors drilled into my shoulder, so the throbbing, I couldn't sleep. And it was just one of those things where I took one in the morning, one at noon, one at night, did that for 3 months straight. And I remember waking up in the recliner still in that shoulder brace, and I slept all night. And I was like, wow, that's the first night I've slept throughout the entire night for 3 months, and I didn't feel that throbbing anymore. So I stopped taking the pills. Well, about a day and a half later, I was on the floor in the fetal position, covered in sweat and cold as ice, and just vomiting and just feeling just like death is what I felt like. And I thought I was sick. I didn't realize, I was physically addicted to those opiate-based pain pills. And so I called the doctor and I said, Doc, I don't know what I have, but I got to come in and see it because I'm deathly ill. This is brutal. And he kind of quickly figured it out after asking me a few basic questions that, no, you're going through withdrawals. And that's when it clued in. I said, whoa, this is brutal. And this is what all my friends have gone through. And now I understand what they've gone through in the past. And then I started thinking back, I've lost a lot of friends to these very pain pills that I'm physically addicted to right now. And that began 2 weeks of just the most hellacious time of my life, because that was 2 weeks of withdrawals that I completely understand why some people would want to commit suicide at that point. I never thought of that. I just was thinking about other people, but I always heard the notions that, when you go through withdrawals from opiates, there are a lot of people that think about suicide. I can completely understand that aspect of it. And it was at that point that I realized that the once in a while times that I was smoking marijuana, I realized that it complete care of all the aches and pains. I enjoyed it. It was fun. And I also realized that no one ever died from marijuana. And around that same time is one of my best friends. He's also Canadian, and he was a WWE professional wrestler named Andrew Test Martin. He sadly passed away from prescription pain meds. And that's what really got me thinking, I got to learn more about this marijuana. No one's ever died from it. It works for pain. It's good for recreation and replacement of alcohol. And as I learned more and more about it, I became more passionate about it. And I still do today. I learn something new about marijuana every single day. It engraves my passion for the issue even further. Every day I become more passionate about getting this stuff legalized as quickly as possible. It'll save so many lives.
Right. And you mentioned the test, its death, and his and how that sort of flung you there, but is in your own personal withdrawal. Those things kind of make people a believer in marijuana and how it's working. It's interesting, and you said you've been a wrestler since 18, so you can kind of go where I'll try to go here. Is that one would presume that you were like more an athletic type, and you were like drugs were bad, and you were kind of jockish, right? So you went in with that group. Is it interesting now to be like speaking marijuana to that same group of guys who are still like drugs are bad and let's go work out some more?
Absolutely. It's even on Twitter, I was just joking around with some of the guys that, back in high school, where I would just call them stupid stoners, while I'm throwing the football around, just messing around with them. But I actually believe they were just stupid stoners. And I run into them in Toronto today, and some of them are accountants, some of them are lawyers still smoking. And I guess, I was completely wrong. It's not like they were stupid stoners. Now that I know about marijuana, it's one of those things where I'm kind of angry at the public education system that brought me up to believe that you can die from marijuana. I was taught that from the drug intervention programs in public school. When I was in grade 5 and 6, I remember going through that, having a police officer come into the gymnasium to do this big speech and about all different drugs, including marijuana, and just putting the fear of God in us. If you come near these, you're going to die. And so that was ingrained in me until my early 30s, and so yeah, it's one of those things. You had the public education, you had media, and you had my already indoctrinated parents. So it was one of those things where basically government was using my parents' tax dollars to lie to me and teach me that marijuana was deadly. I mean, that's just it's insanity, and that's got to change. And I'm going to keep fighting for that to change. We got to tell the truth. We got to let people understand that this is a substance that can help so many people in such a safe way, as opposed to hopping them up on Vicodins, Loratabs, and Norcos. I mean, it's absolutely insanity. Especially down here in the States, these doctors give out these pain pills like they're candy. I mean, you don't even have to ask. You have a toothache? Don't even have to ask. They just look at your tooth. They say, hey, here's some antibiotics. Here's something for the pain. It's Vicodin. They give it out like candy.
So I imagine you have a lot of, it's a weird life that you live with a lot of kind of downtime, and then there's wrestling. Do you talk to other wrestlers about medical marijuana and how marijuana has helped you? Do you get into those types of discussions with them?
Oh, yeah, all the time. There's some other real hardcore advocates in WWE as well. RVD is one of them.
Yep.
Booker T would be another one. I mean, there's a lot of guys that completely understand not only the safety factor of the cannabis plant, but also how well it works for different aspects of health. I mean, you have general aches and pains, arthritis, epilepsy, seizures. I mean, it's good for so many different things. And when you go into the recreational realm of it and you compare it to alcohol, and alcohol's legal, I mean, you have almost 80,000 people per year dying of alcohol poisoning just in America alone. Yet, God forbid, if you roll up a marijuana cigarette, and no one's ever died from marijuana. It's insanity. The laws that we have right now in both Canada and the United States are absolutely insane.
Agreed. So how often are you working? Like, are you on the road often these days? Like, where I know you're out of Phoenix there, and I know you have a daughter, but career-wise, what are you up to?
Well, right now I'm doing Chase Mortgage Banking.
Okay.
So, I'm doing that right now, and I still make appearances once in a while. Like I made an appearance up there in Aurelia this past weekend. But yeah, I really don't wrestle too much anymore right now. I do it maybe 3-4 times a year, and I'll do other appearances and stuff. Really, what I would love to do is get a vapor lounge opened up down here in Phoenix. That's really what my main goal is. Right now, we have medical marijuana program. It's a good program. The dispensaries are great. You go walking in, it's a real modern store, and they have all the different strains, and they have a consultant there that helps patients understand what strain's going to be best for their particular issue. I mean, it's a really nice program that they have right now. Of course, we want to go full legalization here. I mean, if you're a responsible adult, you have every right in the world to grow and consume cannabis at your will in a free country.
Agreed. Phoenix isn't one of the hot spots. I mean, Colorado is, Washington is. Do you think a vapor lounge, are people allowed to congregate somewhere with their medical marijuana licenses and bring it there?
Wasn't there somewhere in Phoenix that was shut down?
Yes. Yeah, there was a place called Cannabis Spot. I think it was run by Bill Hayes. I haven't met him yet, but he was the one that opened that one up. However, from what I understand, I don't know the whole story, but from what I understand is they were actually somewhat of a co-op where patients would bring in the medical marijuana that they've grown, and from what I understand is the Cannabis Spot would end up reselling that back to other customers that would come in, and I guess the authorities figured that was a dispensary, and they didn't have a dispensary license and shut them down. But as far as having a vapor lounge where you can monetize the sales of drinks, rentals for glassware, the sales of papers, trying to monetize every aspect other than selling marijuana would probably be the way to go. Very similar to what Chris has done with Vapor Central. And so I think that can be done down here in Arizona very easily.
You believe? Well, we look forward to you opening a venue like that because.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Sorry, Val, just one thing. I saw like Carl Anderson giving you shit about weed on Twitter. Are there other wrestlers that are still super negative and kind of closed off to medical cannabis or cannabis in general?
Actually, he's not really against marijuana per se.
Oh, okay.
He's just more of a beer guy, and him and I are just always taking pot shots at each other because I'm telling him about his toxic alcohol, and he's telling me about my weed. So we're just playing, taking pot shots at each other, no pun intended. But
I know, like Lance Storm wrote that article years ago, like an anti-weed article I remember reading on his website. This is before I started smoking myself. And I know there are some wrestlers that have been vocal about being anti it and stuff. Do you ever encounter that at all anymore or not really? Is it kind of passe?
I personally haven't encountered that to any great degree. I have ran into that a little bit. But, I mean, the reality is that's just the individual. Like even Lance Storm, I doubt he knows very much about pot at all. And Lance Storm is a real clean-cut guy. He's a real nice guy. But when you have somebody talking negatively about the cannabis plant, instantly it's painfully obvious they know nothing about the cannabis plant itself. It's the most useful plant in the world. It's actually, when you understand how the cannabinoids interact with your cells in the body and reduce inflammation in almost every cell in your human body, when you really understand how those cannabinoids work, hands down, it's healthy for you. It goes beyond being just benign. It's actually healthy for you. And it seems like the more I learn about cannabinoids, the more it backs up that philosophy.
I go back now to the Vapor Lounge in Phoenix, and you see the business how it here operates. What do you see that as a viable option now in your career? Do you see opening a lounge and investing the money to do that and going? Yeah,
I really do. At some point, shortly, I can really see myself moving in that direction. I've had dreams of opening up, like the Hard Rock Cafe. If you go to any city in the world, pretty much, like any in developed nations, you go to any city in the world there, and you go get a Hard Rock Cafe shirt with Tokyo underneath it, or Berlin, or I'd love to have a vapor lounge where you can, in every big city in the world, where when you visit that city, hey, you can stop by the Vapor Lounge and pick up a shirt that has the city name on it, and have it just like the Hard Rock Cafe, but based on cannabis as opposed to alcohol.
Would you call it Captain Cannabis's Cafe?
Maybe.
Let's see that Captain Cannabis as some sort of luchador. I don't know if you've ever seen me at the rallies, but I do wear a cape and stuff. I feel like I could almost sport that Captain Cannabis.
You could be his tag team partner.
I could be.
Absolutely. Team Captain Cannabis.
I really like the idea of Captain Cannabis. He wears like a mask and a cape. And
it comes to the ring. Yeah, I can see that. Or you could be like a manager. You could be a Jim Cornette-style manager for Captain Cannabis.
There we go. Jim Cornette is a hell of a talent, man.
Absolutely.
That guy is nuts. Like legitimately nuts, but a genius when it comes to storylines.
Smash.
Hard Nug Cafe.
What?
Hard Nug Cafe.
Hard Nug Cafe.
Hard Nug Cafe. I am digging that.
You're wrecked over there, eh? She's fucked up.
Yeah, I was actually surprised there on the Friday night how slam packed Vapor Central gets. I mean, it's seems like it's doing really, really well. People are really enjoying that place. It's a nice, relaxing place to enjoy some music and comedy. That's for sure.
I brought my mom here.
You brought your mom here.
I brought my mom here. We sat right there on that couch.
Did she smoke?
Oh, hell yeah. She's got fibromyalgia and it actually was prescribed tons of pain pills and now has found benefits from medical usage herself.
Everybody brings their parents here.
Yeah.
Well, I got to say credit to Sean. Some people were surprised. Like, they saw me walk up, say hi. He remembered me from being here last time. And, just had a conversation, down-to-earth guy. And I went back to work. People were like, what the fuck? Like, you know that guy? And I'm like, well, he was here before. He really dug the place. Like, I don't know. He's a down-to-earth
Well,
dude.
we're pot people. We're pretty much everyone's equal in the pot world, right?
Yeah, I was like, he was impressed with how Vapor Central was. So, yeah, we were hopping the other night when he was here.
Yeah.
I really love that Vapor Central place, man. You guys got a good gig up there, let me tell you.
We do have a very good gig, and we love it when our friends from out of town come in, and I really do hope you open a Vapor Lounge. As someone who's written the kind of the blueprint on how these things are, Hard Nug Cafe would be
Hard Nug Cafe with a blueberry flavor.
You can go out and visit.
I will definitely. We will be on tour in a second and go back to Phoenix. We played Phoenix before, and I got to admit, there's not a lot of places to hang out there that I found. So I will definitely be at Hard Nug Cafe or Captain Cannabis Cafe,
Captain Cannabis.
or Val's Vapor Lounge or
Val's
whatever.
Vapor Lounge. Yeah.
Val's Vapor Lounge. Yeah, I thought about that one before.
That's got good alliteration.
Are you out in Phoenix? And by the way, because you have a couple of the studs to replace your shoulder and whatnot, and as a guy's bad injured shoulder, I know that feeling. Are you out in Phoenix because the weather's better out there?
Oh, yeah. I mean, when I was thinking about moving to the States, it was we were trying to choose between Fort Lauderdale, Tampa, Houston, or Phoenix. And every time that we did shows in Phoenix, the weather was always phenomenal. It was a dry, warm climate. It was I never saw rain here. It was absolutely phenomenal. And so it was probably about mid-January. This is back in 2001. About mid-January when we did a show here. And I remember walking in Scottsdale after the show and going to a place called the Martini Ranch, where we went up to the roof, and we just sat on the roof, and a bunch of us just sitting there just laughing and having a good time. And I was in tank top, shorts, and flip-flops in the middle of winter. It was January. And with all the other times that I'd come to Phoenix, I remember just looking up at the night sky and just going, this is where I gotta live. And sure enough, the very next year, I took my wife down there, and we started house hunting and found a house and moved on down here and got started.
Yeah, because it does. I always hear that the weather out there is just so good for our illnesses.
Hey, Val, it's getting
I'm a fat guy, so it's way too hot for me.
It's getting kind of dark in that camera shot. You got a light in that car? Or tilt?
Oh, I should have.
Yeah, tilt. Oh, there you go.
How's that?
All right.
Is that a little bit better?
That's a bit better.
Perfect. It's kind of a little off the side a bit, but it'll work.
Well, it'll. Do we have any, always, the Vapor Lounge, the Phoenix weather question? And you were in town because you were wrestling in Aurelia. That's a rarity these days.
Yeah, I was up there. Jake the Snake Roberts was there as well. It was a good little show. It was fun. We just did some goofy stuff, entertained the fans, and had a good time.
Nice.
Do you think WWE's policy, is it different now that there's a lot of places with medical? Could you get a prescription, and do they let you kind of get past the testing? Especially because Connecticut just passed medical this year, right?
Yeah. I remember in a talent meeting when they first said they were going to start testing for marijuana.
Yeah.
I'm the guy that threw my hand straight up, and I said, well, what are you guys going to do when marijuana becomes legal? And everybody kind of chuckled and said, well, then I guess it'll be like alcohol, and we won't test for it. And so I asked the question. I said, well, what about states that have medical marijuana now? And at the time, California, of course, had medical marijuana. Mm-hmm. And they said, no, we base our drug testing policy on federal laws. And so it was kind of disappointing to hear that. But let's face it, the walls of prohibition are crumbling all over the world. The truth's getting out there. I am expecting, and I could be wrong, this is just a theory, but I would not be surprised at all to see a huge financial push into organizations that are completely anti-marijuana. And we're starting to see that a little bit now with Patrick Kennedy's group out in Colorado. He set up a camp in Colorado to really push back against legalization of marijuana. And I can completely see the big drug companies really putting money into those kind of campaigns and really putting force behind a pushback. I would not be surprised if that really took off in the next few years anyway.
So you see a pushback coming, huh?
I just don't see it. I mean, if we take a look at all the states where we have medical marijuana program that's fairly liberal, such as California, and then we have Colorado and Washington that have recreational marijuana. What we're seeing a reduction in the sales of prescription pain pills, prescription SSRIs, antidepressants. We're seeing a reduction in those. I just don't see the drug companies watching the sales of their drugs slowly declining as the use of marijuana continues to rise. And one thing that I'm suspicious about, and I've talked about this before online, is when Obama first came in during his first term, one of the very first things he did was tell the federal prosecutors in states where they do have legalized marijuana, he said, make marijuana prosecutions, as it pertains to dispensaries and users, your lowest priority. In other words, basically, don't go after the dispensaries. As we went into the past elections where he was running for a second term, we see him raid more dispensaries than just in his first term than President Bush did in his entire 8 years as president. So this is just my theory. My theory is he came in with an idea that we're going to, kind of relax the laws, so to speak, on marijuana, and someone lobbyist or whatever gets in his ear and basically says, hey, if you want to run for re-election and have some campaign donations, you better start cracking down on those dispensaries. And I can completely would not be surprised if we found out that that was factual and was actually a lobbyist for big drug companies or big oil companies.
I would have to agree with you. Well, you're fading out on us in terms of the light, and we have another caller. Is that our other caller? Good one? Yeah.
Yeah, that's Albert Nuremberg, director.
So we're going to take Albert Nuremberg. Thanks for calling in, Val. You can call us anytime you get a chance to update us on Phoenix. And we wanted to talk other things about libertarians and cannabis. And thanks for stopping by the lounge Friday night and always thinking about us out there in the social media sphere.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for having me on, guys. I greatly appreciate it, man.
And thanks for the years of entertainment, too, man. I was a big fan. You put your body on the line.
Exactly.
Paid the price for it, and I really enjoyed your work. So
agreed. Me, too.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
No.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
No, all right. Appreciate you. All right. It was awesome.
That was awesome.
That was awesome.
Yeah, I came in at the right time. I was just like, I got to go play a Spooky Ruben right now. I'm going to do a show with Spooky Ruben. But I came down to hang out for a second, and Val Venis was there.
Val Venis was there, and we got you right fucked up.
Thanks for having me on the couch. Thank you.
Nailed you.
That's awesome. I've never seen that either. They're all big news today.
They got you erect on the BHO.
That's crazy, too. That Cole thing.